everybody, we are doing Attack on Auraxis live from MLG Columbus. I have kidRiot here, and I'm going to let him host this show because it's kind of his show. But I'm letting him run it here on you know, the MLG site because we want to show off the cool community that we got going on, and what better way to do that than our competitive community that we already have. So go ahead and start this off, Kid.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Maggie, for hosting us on the Twitch, Planetside 2 Twitch. I actually want to thank, before we get started, Steel Dragon from Any Elite for doing the graphics for the Attack on Auraxis.
Yeah,
he
look
does
at this
really
thing.
Good work, as you
it's
can see.
awesome.
And it's the second episode of Attack on Auraxis. Is there an issue with the audio?
There shouldn't be.
Oh, okay. No, I thought she was saying something. And this is the second episode of Attack on Auraxis, and we're going to be focusing on 3 things. It'll be outfit building for the majority of the show, the competition meta, which basically means how outfits operate and maximum efficiency when it comes to competition. And then at the end, we're going to have something which is, I hope, going to be really hilarious. It'll be a rapid fire Q&A segment to the guests of the show. So it'll be to Ender, Shock, and Zoid. So you guys, if you guys want to start asking your questions in chat, you can link my name so it highlights. And I'm going to have somebody actually copy pasting questions. It could be anything from, you know, watermelons and ice cream to Planetside 2 related stuff. Anything you can think of as long as it's PG-13. So without further ado, we're going to get started. And I'm going to actually introduce the guests. We have, at least on my left, Ender from DA, the Soundfall, Shock FC from Future Crew, and Zoidberg from Nuck.
What's up, guys?
I specifically invited these 3 guys because they're leaders of probably 3 of the best outfits in the world. And I really wanted to, you know, get into their heads about outfit building for competition, because I think a lot of outfits are really struggling with this. So we're going to lead into the first question, which is the standard of the show. It's kind of like a get to know the guest question. And we're going to start with Ender. What got you interested in playing Planetside?
Started playing in the first one, and it's actually kind of funny because one of my buddies had shown it to me. I think we were goofing off in some networking class. I'd always liked the game Risk, and he's like, yeah, it's kind of like Risk, except you're the pieces, and kind of history since then. Just always been playing the game. Really, really excited when they announced Planetside next, and then kind of just eked out the information as time went by until PS2 came out.
Right on, man. Are you pretty happy with the way Planetside 2 has come, you know, from Planetside 1?
It's come a long way. I'm just glad, you know, they made it, and they have an active developer team that's constantly making changes and listening to the community. I mean, you can't really ask for much more than that. There's a lot of games out there you play, and you know that you're just being ignored, and that's not the case with this game. And you can actively see it as the game kind of progresses over its lifespan.
Yeah, I could agree with that. So, Shock, what got you interested in Planetside 2, man?
Well, I initially got hooked into the game from my brother-in-law when he had a beta key, like way back in the day, 2003, and I played on his account for a little while. Then I joined the game right away, and I just got hooked ever since. I started as a TR actually, and then I switched to VS along the way, and never really looked back.
Were you in Future Crew in Planetside 1, or did you join in Planetside 2?
Yeah, I was Future Crew in Planetside 1. I took outfit leadership in 2006 after joining in 2005, and then been there ever since. Okay,
right on. And Zoe, to you, what got you interested in Planetside?
For me, it was specifically the MLG announcement. I was playing, I think, Firefall before Planetside 2, and when they announced MLG, that was something that I had never had the opportunity to do before. So I thought, hey, man, it's a shooter. It's kind of like Battlefield. Why not? Let's make a go for it.
All right, and that's actually, I'm really glad you said that, because it's almost seamlessly tied to the first question of the day. And that's going to be other games make the transition between casual and competitive player much smoother, between a preset ladder system, rankings, ease of access, and a variety of other methods. So my question to you guys is, since Planetside 2 clearly lacks these, I want to say this structure or this process, why play Planetside 2 competitively? We're going to start with Ender.
I think that's just kind of, well, like, take for example Future Crew. I mean, they kind of always had their own style of play in PS1, and I think Delta Triad kind of pioneered that. I think, was Murda the first leader of Delta Triad?
Yeah.
But kind of the end game is, you know, you play with a bunch of other really good people, and it's just really fun to drop into a base where you're heavily outnumbered and succeed if you can. And I don't know, that's just kind of a thrill in any game. I mean, you could look at a leaderboard or something like that, but just knowing that you did that with a group of friends is just, I don't know, it's just a good feeling, I guess.
Okay.
And the leaderboards and ranking systems, I mean, that stuff will come over time. You can't really just 48 versus 48 hasn't really, I don't think, been done very competitively yet. It's
no, there's been, I can maybe count on one hand how many events there's been for 48s.
Yeah.
So like legitimate events.
I think we'll get there. It's just got, I mean, things take time to get out there, evolve, and kind of adapt, and eventually kind of grow into their own thing.
Okay, Shock, why play Planetside competitively?
I mean, honestly, it's a simple answer for me. It's fun. I mean, we started off here in Planetside 2 having fun. I mean, that's what Future Crew came to Planetside 2 to, you know, just continue to be our fun selves, a great outfit already, and you know, people just kind of came to us and wanted to play with us, really good players, which was awesome, and competitive Planetside just kind of came around, and you know, right now, a lot of the things we do are scrims, and you know, if we can, we get ourselves into competitions, because I mean, really, at this point, it's kind of the only fun that the guys really have anymore. I mean, it's fun to, you know, farm people endlessly and whatever, but it gets old after a while, you know. And we like the heightened, you know, competitive scene. We like to play against players that are good, that give us a challenge. So that's why we keep doing it.
All right, so the question, why play Planetside 2 competitively?
I think Planetside 2 really provides a unique competitive atmosphere where traditionally, like I've done a lot of 5v5, 8v8s with Battlefields. 48 versus 48 is an entirely new challenge, especially for a leader where we're having to deal with strategies for 4 different squads, a platoon as a whole on 9 different bases on Nexus. And it's really very, very different. Not to mention in Battlefield, oftentimes you see a one tank or one chopper starting to make a difference. In this game, you can have 48 tanks that come and make a difference. You can have entire air squads where you're pulling 48 air off the start of Nexus. And it's really, really interesting, and it's just so very different from anything else out there in the competitive realm.
Yeah, no, I agree, and we're actually going to get into that, how Planetside 2 differs from other shooters and just other games in general. But we're going to go on with the next question. MLG and SOE have decided upon a 48 versus 48 format for competition in Planetside 2. The Nexus was clearly designed for 48s with the dual lane system. What is the biggest hurdle facing outfits in creating a 48-man roster? And if you think about it, it's actually a 60-man roster, right? Because you want your squad in reserve, you know, in case, you know, it hits the fan. So what's the biggest hurdle facing these outfits trying to create 48s for MLG? We're going to start with Zoidberg.
Well, I think just the sheer numbers of that is a little bit ridiculous. And I'm loving participating in 48 versus 48. But I know when we're even doing 5s, it's difficult to have 5 starters on 6 nights a week. We're trying to do 48 versus 48 7 nights a week in Planetside. So our roster is actually much larger than 60. We're sitting at an 85-man roster in order to do 48s every night. And I think simply doing that is going to be very difficult. I also think it's very difficult to go to something like MLG and not have everyone on LAN. There's always the fear of hackers. And LAN is a way where you can really separate, all right, this guy's legit from this guy's not legit. And we're talking about maybe bringing 5 people out to a LAN and having 43 people play online. You know, there's always that thought in the back of my mind where, all right, there's a guy who might be using a wall hack, calling out locations for someone. I think that's another one of the really big issues that we're going to see with 48 versus 48 instead of, say, 5v5 or even 1v1.
Yeah, valid concerns, valid concerns. What do you think, Shock?
Well, the biggest hurdle facing us, like any outfit really getting 48s, is Nexus needs to be fixed, and so does competitive. I mean, MLG competitive Planetside. I mean, there's been nothing really good or anything at all. Like there's no good observer cams. There's no good anything. It's hard to get 48 players excited right now about 48s. So, I mean, really, once this actually develops into something that feels more real, people are going to get more excited about it.
All right, and that makes sense. I think tied in with the concerns of cheaters and actually trying to build up momentum is something that's really tough on outfits. And we'll actually have a question about that, so we'll get into that a little bit later. But Ender, what do you think, man?
The numbers is definitely something, especially as people were kind of waiting for content. I know DA specifically, I had a lot of guys waiting for the OMFG patch just because, I mean, nothing was coming out. The game was, I mean, do the same thing over and over, and we've done a lot of interesting things, but holding interest, I guess, in the game while we were waiting for the OMFG patch was kind of difficult. But I guess as far as outfits go for gaining 48s, you got to have the player base, and the players need to still be having fun. And in order to keep people active, I mean, you have to be having fun, and right. Getting that many people on board, I mean, just to jump right into 48 is, I don't know, that I think the community clash is doing a good thing with the 24s because it'll build momentum, and they're going to give us the API feed, so we're going to be able to build kind of like an ESPN type, you know, live active scoreboard for the community clash. So that should be able to kind of help build, like Shock said, momentum for the whole competitive scene, get people involved, get them active, get them wanting to see, you know, their favorite player playing or something like that. Just getting more exposure in general, I guess, and allowing our outfits the opportunities to actually get into it and get their feet wet, I guess, in the entire competitive scene.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm actually glad you mentioned 24s. It's not on the list, but I want to kind of cut briefly into this. Do you think that Community Clash going into 24s is really going to help build momentum, like you said, for, you know, when you want more viewers, you want more of the community involved? Do you think that it was a wise decision on Community Clash's part to go 24s? We'll start with Ender.
I think it was the only decision they could have made. If you set the bar at 48 minimum, you exile like so many outfits out of the initial scene that you're not going to build the momentum you need. With 24s, there are a lot more outfits that are going to be able to compete and say, okay, yeah, we can do that. We can, I mean, we can field 24 people, you know, on a somewhat short basis, and that'll help build more interest. People will be like, oh yeah, I can jump in this team 24s. It'll give outfits exposure. It'll just give the entire scene, I guess, a little more exposure. You won't have to focus on so many different things. You know, as they bring the observer cams in and stuff, they'll be able to catch a lot of the action going on. Whereas maybe with 48s, you know, when the observer cams first come in, it's going to be kind of tough to catch all the action.
It's really tough. You need at least double the cameras for 48s that you do for 24s. I casted a 48 scrim the other day with one camera, and the only reason I could do it is because they were fighting predominantly over a biolab. If it was in the open field, like at the Nexus, forget it, man. There would have been no way. I would have just hovered in the corner and cried, basically.
Split screen left and right, and people will miss maybe something like they got interested in a battle, and all of a sudden it splits to a different battle or something. And like I said, I think it'll get there, but I think 24s was a good start, and that will actually help build the momentum that the competitive scene will need to actually be successful.
Okay, Shock, I'm going to try and change the question. So 24s, you have the opportunity to build up spectatorship, new casters in the community. You know, I'm sure you're going to be casting. Like, it's almost that organic thing, right? This is what we want. A Community Clash is kind of like, it's a part of us, we're a part of it. How do you feel about this whole thing coming into next year with Community Clash?
You know, I think Community Clash is doing exactly what they need to do. It's a grassroots start, and that's what Planetside needs. We don't need that big MLG hit right away. Like, Planetside 2 just flat out wasn't prepared for it. We're prepared for a grassroots, community-driven competitive tournament, and that would be, or ladder, and that would be Community Clash, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're doing seasons, they're doing 24s, which 24s are more interesting for the viewer right now with the tools that SOE has for, you know, watching games. I mean, people, a lot of what they'll say is they want to be immersed in 48s. We can't get observers immersed if we don't have the tools to do it.
Right.
So 24s, it's a lot easier to be immersed because they're fighting over less objectives. It's easier to cast because you know what's going on. It's just better to build that hype and momentum for Planetside 2 competitively, starting with 24s and starting with something that's community-driven, grassroots kind of a thing like Community Clash.
Okay, and Shock comes up with a good point. It's going to build that momentum, and I'm going to change the question coming to you, Zoid. So 24s, I think, like they have said, and I agree with them, is a good start, right? So should all this momentum be building up towards 48s? Should 48s be the end goal? I mean, well, put aside the contract with MLG. Put that aside. Should 48s be the end goal, in your opinion?
Well, let me first off say I actually disagree. I don't think 24s is where we want to start because it stunts the organic growth of the competitive community. I think right now Planetside does actually play better in 24s than 48s, but SOE and Nexus is designed for 48s, and that's what we should be looking at right now instead of saying, all right, if this plays better right now, looking at, you know, the 24th of November, I think it's November, 24th is better right now, but MLG, SOE is pushing for 48s, and I think as a community, instead of saying, oh, you know, let's go 24s right now because it's better in the now, we should be looking towards the future and really pushing everyone towards 48s, and I don't think that 24 versus 24 in Community Clash is doing that.
Well, how would you bridge that gap? I mean, I agree with you too because, you know, I'm all about 48s. Obviously, I'm in your outfit. But how would you bridge the gap between the actual community wanting 24s and the necessity being 48s? And it's not a necessity, but eventually the end goal is 48s. How do you bridge that gap between outfits doing 24s and maybe not having the numbers to 48s? How would you do that? How would you recommend to an outfit for them to bridge the gap between 24s and 48s?
You know, what we did to initially hit that 48-man number is we just merged with a lot of other outfits. We opened our doors up and said, you know, this player may not be very good yet. He may only have around a 2 KDR or 25% accuracy on an assault rifle or something like that. But that's a really good baseline. If we get someone who's never had any competitive experience doing that, bring them in, start working with them, training with them, all of a sudden we have an 85-man dedicated roster with 48 people on every night. And my big concern about 24s, and we are seeing this from a lot of outfits I've talked to, is they say, oh, you know, we can do Community Clash, we can do 24s instead of doing 48s. So a lot of these mergers that were going to happen, that we're going to start building up that 48 scene, are no longer happening because people have an outlet for 24 competition.
All right, Shock, after hearing what Zoe said, do you agree with him? Do you
No, I don't. The thing about merges is it's not as easy as you say. You think it is. You have a lot of outfits in Planetside 2 that have been around forever, and I mean they're not just gonna say, all right, we'll merge into you guys and that'll be that. Our outfit's done. It's gone.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why not? If you want to do MLG, why don't you set that aside and say, all right, if this is what it takes to do MLG, we're gonna do it.
Honestly, it's deeper than that. It's hard to explain. These people have been friends for years, and it's like if they have to collectively agree, and sometimes that takes up to like 60 people to collectively agree on something like that, and that's tough to do. And you know, the thing is, recruiting for 48s right now is very difficult. I think the OMFG patch is going to help because it's going to bring more people back, but there just isn't the player base of, you know, and I know, like you said, you can train players up, but there really aren't good enough players. There aren't, you know, you can't get 60 to 70 guys for 10 outfits that are all extremely good. You're going to have 3 to 4 outfits right now that are going to be just destroying everybody, and it's not going to be fun for people to watch. Viewership needs to build, I think, before 48s are achieved. No, there's no goal for 48s right now. There's no, you're going to get paid this much money, and you know, if you win, so you know, what's the end goal here of putting yourself through that much time, that much commitment? There's nothing.
You'll be better when 48s comes out. That's for sure. If you can start scrimming with 48s right now and getting your synergy down, getting those players built up, then you're going to be better when MLG does roll around. I think that, for us, is the goal, at least.
I agree with you there, but my whole question is, when will MLG roll around? I mean,
that is a good question.
That's a $1 million question, you know, man. Nobody knows.
We've been watching a mediocre, and that's putting it extremely well. A mediocre war report for the last 26 episodes. I mean, when is it actually going to get good? When are people going to want to tune in? That's my whole thing. Like, nobody cares about MLG. Everybody cares about the community clash right now.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that at all. For us specific, we haven't had issues with mergers. We've gone through 3 of them. We haven't had issues bringing people in, training them up, because it's what we're actually doing. Our biggest concern, like you said, though, is when is MLG going to start? And I know I've got a lot of guys right now who are starting to get to that point where they say, you know, especially me, I've been saying, all right, guys, MLG is right around the corner for like 9 months now. And that's starting to lose that effectiveness when I say, all right, guys, MLG right around the corner. It's next month. Next month is coming soon. It doesn't mean as much anymore. For us, that's still our main priority, and I think everything that we do is built up for MLG, so maybe it's a little easier for us to get 48 people on every night as opposed to those 24s.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they don't, I mean, you got MLG Anaheim in the spring, right? And then you have or is that the summer tournament or is that the spring tournament, MLG Anaheim?
I think we went to Anaheim in the summer. Was that, yeah, August.
Okay, so if they don't have an event by spring, or let's say summer at the latest next year, it's not going to be looking good, I don't think, because you might have a community clash, but at the same time, you have this huge organization like Major League Gaming that has the productivity, the resources. They may not dedicate so many resources to Planetside 2 specifically, but they do have access to all kinds of things that can make it a much smoother transition and bring in the viewership. But let's let Ender throw in his word here. What do you think about? Yeah, I was about to say 2 cents, but what do you think about what these dudes have been saying, man?
I guess I'm completely on Shock's side on this. I'm a business management major, and I had to take a lot of marketing classes, and things that are launched before they're ready, just you're gonna kill it. I mean, you're gonna kill the entire scene before it happens. 24s has to happen first, and like I said, pretty much everything Shock said, you have to develop something before you just jump head in first. If you had the player base you had on a release, I could see 48s right away, but you don't have that player base anymore. And maybe, I mean, OMFG brought people back because I think people were saying what this double XP weekend was hitting kind of release numbers of people, but how many of those people are actually gonna stay, or were they just back to kind of check it out?
Yeah, but to be fair, they did announce the MLG partnership back in, I think, January 26th. I was
Which
reading an article.
definitely was a mistake.
Well,
it was way too
giving
early.
us MLG for a year. That was a big mistake.
I think, in my opinion, what needed to happen, they needed to wait for the observer cam to be really fleshed out and polished, because I've written a lot about this, and I liken the current state of Planetside 2 competition to what League of Legends was before they had their observer cam, right? You had a guy join the team, and it was really terrible to watch. It had low viewership, but as soon as they got a proper observer cam, it really built up into what you see nowadays, which is like hundreds of thousands of viewers. I don't know if Planetside 2 will ever get there, but it has the potential for more viewership because of the nature of the game.
I think it can get there. It can definitely get there. But I don't think jumping headfirst into 48s is going to be the way to do it. You're not going to develop anything. People are going to be like, oh, this is boring. I'm not going to watch it. And then they're not going to go back. Like, that first impression is huge. And I think 24s let so many extra outfits participate that it's just going to build a lot more community, I guess, competitive community, and allow it to develop kind of on its own naturally.
Okay, so we're going to move on from this.
Interject here for a moment. I don't know if
we
you
said
guys
a lot
can hear
about
me
it, but we're going to move on.
at all.
And I actually want to ask something. Since you guys are all leaders of your respective outfits, we're going to start with Zoid on this one. What role do competitive outfits have in the larger community? Do they have one at all? Like, as far as giving back, helping new players, interacting with other outfits, or is it really about your competitive outfit doing its own thing? We'll start with Zoid.
So whenever I'm giving talks about esports and something like that, or writing articles, one of the things that I make clear, competition is when two teams focus on an arbitrary rule set and go play against each other. That's competition. Esports is the industry surrounding competition. So if we're looking at Planetside as an esport, absolutely, competitive teams have to do things to help this. We need to be bringing money into Planetside. We need to be pushing those videos out. We need to be getting people to play this game. We need to be building hype. We need to be doing all of that sort of thing. So yes, definitely, it should be about giving back to the community, making esports profitable for SOE, which has to happen.
Okay, Shock, sorry, we're having some issues here, but go ahead, Shock. What do you think?
To exactly what Zoid said. I mean, we're the guys at the forefront. We have to push it. I know, we talked about that a bit in Vegas, face to face. We got to get this thing going. We have to continuously push videos out. Videos that help people learn the game, help people learn what we're doing differently than other outfits. I mean, all three of us have individual players in our outfits that are absolutely phenomenal players, and that's some of those strategies, some of the things that they do, we need to share with the rest of the community. We need to share with the people from the outside, so they have they have something that they want to strive for. They have something that's attainable, and instead of just saying like, oh, this guy's just really good and that's the end of it, and plus it's interesting to watch. It's interesting to watch an extremely good player play the game. I mean, you see what kind of viewership, streams like Twiff has, or when Kudo Chop was streaming, those guys are extremely good, and people want to watch it.
Picked it up again here recently too.
Yeah, so I mean, people want to watch it. People want to see what these guys do differently, and I think that's our goal, is to push it in that sense.
Okay. We can hear you now, Maggie. Yeah. Was there something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was trying to, because you guys were talking about, future MLGs, and we do want to plan something next year for the first MLG that's out. I don't know if you guys can hear me at all, but at least the stream can hear me. So we are thinking that we might do a tournament that one, and we're going to try to, obviously we need our observer cam a little bit more fleshed out, like they were saying. I do kind of semi-agree with them that like the partnership with MLG was a little bit early. We needed to have everything that we needed on the back end of, in order to start doing tournaments. But the partnership with MLG to start off with here, we're just a venue here. It's not a partnership where it's like we're trying to do tournaments nonstop. So it's a little bit of a difference there in that sense.
Okay, I heard you.
Yeah, it was really tough to hear you, Maggie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had to unmute the stream. She was. I don't know if you guys heard it, but she was basically talking about that the partnership with MLG was for about building the venue, which is what they have currently set up. I know there was a few aspects to the contract. One which was to do the War Report, which it wasn't called War Report then. The other one was actually having Planetside 2 at the live venue, which is what they're doing now. And then the third, I think, was like a games battles thing. a sign up for a competition. I wasn't sure what happened to that. But actually, I want to let Ender talk about what they were just talking about, and then we're going to lead into the next segment because we're running out of time here.
Definitely agree. Like what Shock said getting the videos out there and kind of showing the difference in play styles or what these people do. I know when Vonic makes a light assault video now, people kind of flock to that and watch it. And I've seen a lot of light assaults try to imitate what he does now, which is kind of cool, especially for Vonic. But on the other side of things, just getting people interested, like the whole Reachcast thing. I'm pretty sure they said they're going to be able to give us access to that API, and I don't know how many people are familiar with 50's site, the Das-Anfall stat site.
Yeah.
But with access to that API, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, we're going to be able to do, a scoreboard or an active kind of running thing during the community clashes that will help people, kind of watch the stats. Like if somebody scores a kill, you'll be able to see that in the feed. And we're also working on, me and 50 and Vonic are trying to put together a formula for like a 12 versus 12 comparison tool. So you can pick any 12 players you want and see kind of the strengths and differences and what happens. Just kind of, that's the kind of stuff that'll let people play with it. They could pick their own favorite players or whatever and put them against each other and just see the hard stats of how they weigh out. There's tons of people that get involved in like fantasy football and stuff like that. A fantasy PS2 type thing would be, even if you're not in the competitive outfit, you could get involved in it because it'd be fun to kind of track that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's really good work, man. Actually, we should have pointed out that stats.dasnfl.com. Check it out, guys. It's probably the most fleshed out and stats system out there for the game currently, and I'm really excited about that 12v12 thing you got going on.
It still does require registration, but earlier this morning I added 100 uses to the code PS2MLG, just PS2MLG, all one word. So if you want to go register, if you haven't already, you can go check it out and see what's going on there.
Okay, we're going to get on to the next topic. We have maybe 10 minutes on this, and then we'll jump into the last segment. I want to talk about, there hasn't been a lot of battle really in the Nexus, but there has been, this kind of meta establishing itself. One of them being the air dominance, and the other being max heavy play on points. Well, are you guys happy with the current state of the meta in the Nexus? We'll start with Zoid.
So at least in the 48s we've done, there hasn't been a ton of max play simply because of the resources. Air, absolutely dominant. We have 8 different openers that we use on Nexus, and they're all air dominant. So I think air is a lot of fun. I think the biggest issue that we're seeing right now is how to deal with the air once that air battle has already been won. Because you don't want to see 45 minutes determined in the first 5 minutes. You want to have a chance for a comeback. And I think if there was a little bit more of a way to do that, the meta would be in a very good place. Until that's there, a lot of Nexus does turn into who has the best air squad.
Okay, Shock.
Nexus hasn't had much of a time to develop as far as the metagame goes, but, air is the metagame at Nexus right now. That's all we've seen when Nexus has been played, is that air just kind of rules all. When the team that has the air dominance wins, and that's exactly how it's been every single time. Whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, it's yet to be determined, because, again, we haven't played enough matches on Nexus to really know what we can push and what we can do. So, if this was a question more along the lines of, like, 24s, there's been a bit of a metagame developed there, but, this is obviously about Nexus, so I can't really speak to that.
All right, Ender. I don't know if you spend much time with the Nexus, but I'm pretty sure you've watched the videos.
Yeah, well, I've been there. We've checked out all the bases. We've done our homework on it, I guess you could say. But with like the map being broken and stuff, it's really hard to gauge a lot of the things that could potentially go on there. Air has definitely been dominant in the reach casts that have been going on there, and I'm not saying they aren't the dominant factor, but I don't know. I think if Nexus was fixed and you actually got a couple other decent outfits in there, I don't know if Air would maintain. It's obviously strong, but I don't think it would be as strong as it's currently viewed, I guess.
Right, and I'm actually glad you said that, because it leads to the next question. Say the Nexus is still very much in an alpha state, right? It was working for a while, and then it stopped working, but it's understandable because of the current state of the Nexus. And actually, I don't even know if we're supposed to have access to it, but, it is what it is. How do you think competition will play out when it's fully functioning? We'll start with Ender.
When it's fully functioning, in 24s or 48s?
Either or.
I think you'll see a lot of the outfits that can respond really quick, doing really well there. I know the middle one has a lot of links to it, but you'll see a lot of, as soon as a cap timer, at least I think what it'll develop into, once a cap timer is solidified, like let's say you defend a base because you kick them off, and you already have somebody dropping and flipping that next point so that they cannot hack that again, and then one spawn beacon, I mean, you can have 11 more guys at that spot and you have it locked down already. I don't think a lot of outfits, obviously the squad beacon was nerfed, sort of, kind of, I mean, it is nerfed, but
Sadly.
it's still really powerful, and it really hasn't. I kept telling my guys, you know, they keep saying, you know, it's a nerf or whatever, but it's kind of been a buff to us because there aren't a whole lot of people that can keep that beacon up anymore, and we can. It is a little harder, but we generally keep one up, and it forces everybody to drop in the same spot. There's no pods dropping all over.
Right. Y'all forced to support each other essentially.
Yep, exactly. And like when we drop into a tech plant, I mean, all 12 are right there, and I think you'll see that in the Nexus. You'll have one infill, you know, maybe going ahead, and they're waiting. That flips. You know, he puts the beacon down. All of a sudden, those people are all at the next base immediately. Like, and that's that goes back to the whole air thing. I mean, air is strong, but if you don't catch that info, that beacon goes down. You got 11 guys inside the building already. I mean, I guess you can rocket pod the doors if you want, but you're gonna have to come and get us.
All right, Shock. So, what do you think? How do you think it'll play out, either for 24s or 48s, once it's fully working?
So, when it's fully working, we're gonna see, and like Ender said, and it's funny because that, you know, it's the fast playstyle, it's the fast response outfits that have always been dominant. It's been that way since Planetside 1. You're gonna see tactics like, you know, getting one or two guys to a point at you know, before the other outfit even notices them. It's one of those things where a lot of those stealth tactics that we see kind of talked about in 24s, we see those kind of infiltrators going behind the scenes and just kind of wrecking things and doing things that you may not, if you're an observer, you see it and you're like, well, I don't know if that's doing much, but it's actually doing a lot of wreckage to the enemy team, especially when they're killing their medics. They're harassing, they're doing a lot of things like that. I don't think we've seen the proper amount of harassment yet in Planetside 2 in any competitive sense, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest things on Nexus, is just absolute harassment, whether it's with air, whether it's with infiltrators, whether it's with a sniper, something like that. Something where it's going to frustrate the other team. I mean, and that's kind of one of the things that I've always pushed competitively, is just absolutely frustrating the other team, and I think when we see Nexus develop, we're going to see that more and more and more develop into the metagame, or, you know, into the competitive play.
How do you think that saying "fortune favors the bold" applies to Planetside 2 competition?
You know, I'm a big fan of being aggressive. Every time that I've ever been passive, that I've ever held my guys back into a room and said, all right, just wait here, we've actually gotten wiped or lost, and eventually we get wiped. And I mean, when I've got my infiltrators rolling around behind, when I've got, you know, my aircraft taking out key points, we're more effective. When we got guys moving constantly, and the thing about my outfit is that a lot of those guys already do that. They just innately do that. We're a very moving, very flowing, very organic outfit. So I think that's absolutely going to be the key for competitive play in the future.
What do you think, Zoe? 2 points. One, how will the Nexus play out? And two, is aggressiveness properly rewarded in competition?
So we've scrimmed or had matches on Nexus and 48s about 10 times now, and just from the first time when we had the opportunity to play until now, we've already seen our strategies change drastically. So I think we're going to continue to see that. With 48 versus 48, there is so much room for strategy development. There's so much room for crazy strategies, cheeses, lots of different stuff. I think it's going to be absolutely insane in the future. And I think aggression is what Nexus is about. If you see someone sitting back and defending, they're not taking territory, and it's all about taking territory. If you can flip a point for 2 minutes, they have to wait on that base for 2 minutes before they can push out on their lattice. So absolutely everything we do on the Nexus is all about being the aggressor and not playing defense.
Okay, so what would you guys, this will be the last question and then we move on to the last segment. What would you guys recommend to an outfit trying to get into competition, either the community clash or the Nexus, whatever it is? How would you recommend they start about getting the people together? Because I know it's really hard, because a lot of like our outfits actually get, you know, a lot of players. They call it poaching. A lot of the best players come to our outfits. But how would you recommend new players, or maybe, you know, outfits that are kind of on the borderline of 24s? They want to compete. they're not really sure how. What should they be doing? Let's start with Zoid.
Just suck it up and do it. If you have to go through a merger, do it. If you have to pick up a player that may not be as good as you think you want, do it. Just get 24 and start playing, and then before you know it, you've been playing with 24 or 48 for a month or two longer than another team who wants those top-tier players and only those top-tier players. You've got the synergy and you're beating them. So I think just go out there and do it. Don't make excuses.
Okay, Shock.
To bounce off Zoid, yeah, I mean, I'm all about chemistry. I like having people that you're friends with, that you can trust, that you know how they play, you know how they cover your back, and just get those players in the outfit. And a big thing is that most outfits do have a couple, 2, 3, 4, if not more players that are really good. And it's all right to learn from those players. It's also all right to ask players that, from the community who are really good or who you respect or something like that. You can ask them, you can approach them like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And they're usually willing to teach you. Where, I mean, the elite players aren't all, they're not mean. They're not mean people. They're not sitting on like a high throne. They want to help the community grow, and they want to help the competitive community thrive. And the only way to do that is to teach players how to play. And like I said, just get players in there and practice. Just learn how to do things better and really learn from how the top outfits do things. There is a big value in that. So, like I said, just build, and create that chemistry.
I agree with you. I think a lot of times people think of humility as kind of meekness, but it's not. It's basically having your eyes open, your mouth shut, and your ears open, and learning from people who have been doing this for a lot longer. And I think it's a really good lesson, not only in games itself, but in life. To be that kind of student of life, or the game itself, and just learn from people that are better than you, and you'll get better yourself. What do you think, Ender?
Definitely what they said. I mean, you just got to kind of do it. There's also another big facet of communities, I guess, in a game like this that you really got to watch out for, and it was pretty evident in PS1. When I first made DA in PS1, I tried to get, it wasn't even a competitive scene, but I tried to get players that I really wanted to play with. Well, DT was already around. I mean, Delta Triad already had all the good players. Why would they pick me over that one? And that kind of lends itself into the whole poaching thing, which I don't think it's not really intentional, but one good player, in an outfit, like let's say one of the larger outfits has, a couple really good players, they're going to teach those players for a while, but eventually they're going to get tired of doing nothing but teaching those players, and they're going to leave. I think the biggest thing for outfits that are already established that want to get into competitive type stuff is don't splinter your community. Like, you need to be able to retain these players too, so you need to make sure that everybody that's going ahead that wants to do the competitive stuff isn't going to alienate them from the rest of the outfit. Like, that has to be
right.
declared up front so you don't splinter your own outfit. Otherwise, you'll keep seeing all the good players filter in to a select few outfits, and that's not going to be good for the competitive scene at all. So I think a lot of the outfits that are trying to get into it need to really kind of establish, this is our competitive team, we're going to build for this. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but if you want to play, you have to be able to take criticism. Otherwise, you're going to end up with people breaking off and joining another outfit that's already got a bunch of good players.
Okay, well said. I think on all your parts. We're gonna, a few minutes here, we're gonna start answering some questions from the viewers. Actually, it's something I introduced you guys, but I didn't let you guys say who you were and what you do in your outfit. So we'll do another quick reintroduction. Somebody asked, what team do you play for? And it's basically to everyone. So just describe, what team you play for and what you do for your outfit. We'll start with Zoid.
Okay, so my outfit is NUC. I am the platoon leader and alpha squad leader for our outfit.
Shock?
My outfit is Future Crew. That's FCRW. We play on the Connery server. I am the outfit leader and platoon leader.
All right, Ender?
My outfit's Dasanfall, DA. We play on Matherson, and actually recently been playing NC Matherson and VS on Watterson, as well as D-Love on Watterson and SPW on Matherson and C.
Yeah, I love when you guys come to Watterson, man. I love those kinds of fights. It makes me remember fighting Future Crew all the time. I dive headlong into those fights, man. That's the kind of competition on the live servers that you live for, or at least I live for.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, you get those friendly rivalries going, man. That's community, right? Okay, so let's go down. Wow, Somebody asked VS21314, what's your favorite dinosaur? We'll start with Zoid again.
Allosaurus.
Which one's the Allosaurus?
It's the guy with super sharp teeth, smaller than a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I just did a Allosaurus arms. I'm a really cool person. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like charades, right? You gotta kind of show and not tell, right?
Yeah, that's right. That way you know it's got arms on it.
All right, Shock. What's your favorite dinosaur, man?
You know, I saw that question. I think the correct answer is 42.
Okay, fair enough. 42. Ender?
Velociraptor, man, from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I think Jurassic Park. I was watching the SOE the anniversary thing, and they actually asked the devs the same question, and it's pretty unanimous in favor of Velociraptors, I think.
Oh, really?
Jurassic Park has shaped our lives, man. All right, so no, I'm not gonna ask that one. Well, here, I'll ask Shock this one because I think it suits Shock more than it does you guys. What's your favorite Care Bear, Shock?
Oh man, I think I didn't really watch Care Bears, and I apologize to the community, but I always had a kind of affinity towards the purple one. I think it had a pink heart in the middle. It seemed more, lively to me.
All right. Somebody has a question for Ender. Is Vonic human?
Sonic human. Part. He's like cyborg, I think. No, if you ever get to know Vonic, or if you ever get to talk to him on TeamSpeak, I know a lot of people think he hacks, but he doesn't. Like if you listen to this guy talk, he knows the game in and out. You could ask him like just a random weapon question, and he'd probably be able to tell you like the actual recoil first shot multipliers on any random weapon. It's really kind of scary. So maybe he's not human.
Yeah, actually, I had a chance to play with him early one morning. I was streaming. It must have been like 4 in the morning Pacific time. And he's like, dude, let's play. So we played together. It was actually pretty fun, man. So actually, this is the question from Kill, one of your guys, Shock. The validity of snipers in competitive play, and I'm actually going to be touching on this next week in an Infiltrator episode. But let's try and answer this question. Are snipers valid in competitive play currently, Zoid?
I think infiltrators are incredibly valuable. I think snipers are nearly useless.
Okay, Shock.
I almost have to tiptoe on this question since Kill is one of my guys, but
yeah.
Yes, infiltrators are incredibly valid, and snipers are extremely situational, and I haven't encountered that situation yet that we need them.
Very, very political of you. Very political of you. Well done. It shows that you are a true alpha leader. All right, Ender?
I don't know so much about snipers. I find use for a lot of weird, like we do some crazy strategies sometimes, but I think one infill in the squad is useful probably more as an SMG infill, just because you can keep those darts out. You have those EMP grenades, which we found some actually really useful things for those here our last test session. But I think one infill is useful. I think if you start getting more than one, you're kind of pushing your luck.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that one. And I think it's just proven itself over the track record of playing on live servers and being in competitive outfits. It's just I don't know why it is that way, but maybe with the infill revamp, we'll see some new changes. We'll see infills used a little more often, but usually I think one per squad's pretty good. So another person's asking, what's your number? Actually, this is a good question for all of you guys. What's your number one piece of advice for a new player? We'll start with Ender.
Find an outfit that will, bring you into the community, show you the game. Planetside 2 is a huge game, kind of like Planetside 1 was. It's complex. I know a lot of people say it's not as complex as PS1, but it's going to get there, and it's already a lot more complex than, say, like Battlefield or something. You need to find a community that's going to embrace, your newbie side or whatever, and get you brought up to speed in the game so you can have more fun and actually enjoy the game.
All right, Shock?
Absolutely. Join an outfit, build friendships with people, and especially join an outfit that trains people, that teaches people how to play. There's plenty of outfits out there that are just going to mass invite you or whatever. Join an outfit that's got a community where you can talk to different people who played the game for a long time, learn how to play the game. It's a really fun, very immersive game. You can develop some really good friendships from it. Absolutely do that if you're a new player.
All right, Zoid?
I have to agree. My outfit's going to make fun of me because I always play the game alone, but Planetside 2 is more fun with people. So find some people you like playing with that'll teach you how to play the game, because it can be very complicated and confusing when you start.
Yeah, I think that the barrier of entry seems steep in Planetside 2 when you don't join these outfits. But once you do join an outfit and you get a group of friends, I mean, look at all of us, right? Our community's developed from essentially nothing. I mean, I might have long history with DA and Future Crew, but you can create those communities that actually not only stand the test of time, but excel, and thrive and are really fun. And I'm sure each of our voice comms doing ops and non-ops is a lot different. I mean, I've been on Future Crew voice comms, and they got their little style and taste of salt and pepper. And I've obviously been in nut comms, which is a lot different too. I've been in recursion, hostile takeover. So every outfit has their own certain style. It's like it's like the attitude of the outfit, and it's really good when you look at it, especially at SOE Live, that these outfits are kind of like just friends. We may only play over the internet, but I think it develops into something that's really unique. And I think it's because of the way Planetside 2 was made, that you really have to rely on your teammates. You really have to rely on on your medics, your heavies, your maxes, whatever it is, and really work together to get things done. And so we're going to end it with that question. Do you guys have anything else to add to the discussion today between outfit building, the competitive meta, or anything? Any last words?
We're always looking for scrims.
Yes, yes, we are.
Yeah, we're 48 scrims. It's trying to get developed right now. I know I actually have a guy working with me that he's organizing a bunch of 48s, but it's between, I got to call them mid-level outfits, but it's actually really fun and interesting to watch these guys, trying new things. It's kind of like tentative steps, of the baby duckling, I guess. But it's really interesting to see, and I'm really happy to see these things happen. Do you have anything to add, Andrew?
That Nexus map.
Yeah, they got it. But I mean, I think with the way Nexus was pushed out, it was kind of like, have a look-see, kind of like show and tell. So I think eventually, once they get the resources, they'll put time into it. I mean, the Nexus, I think, to me, is my favorite map in the game by far. It has everything you want in a map. You have Auraxis SACON hub. You have its flat land. You have Granite Head, which is bitter infantry fighting. It's a really fun map, and I think once we do get those tools that I know SOE is working on and is going to provide, it's going to be really exciting to watch the Nexus. I think it's probably the best map by far, and the bases themselves are really well done. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that before we shut off.
It's definitely a cool design. If you get the chance to fly around there, it's different from I guess what's currently out there. Kind of in the same way, Hassan's different from most of the current designs. Really fun to play on. Just gotta get it working, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know if Xander can hear us, but thanks a lot, man, for designing. I think you did a lot of the Nexus. I listened to your conversation at SOE Live, and I was really happy that you were the one doing the bases. So I don't know. That's it for us. This is the second episode of Attack on Auraxis. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to watch the rest of the streams. There's gonna be some cool stuff coming up with the developers from Planetside 2. I want to thank Ender from Des Enfants, Shock from Future Crew, and of course my big daddy Zoid over there, my Papa Zoid.
The pun master.
Yeah, the pun master. No, your jokes are pretty bad. But
They are.
Thanks again for watching, guys, and that's it for us. Thank you very much, Luperza, for having us on.
Take care.
Yep.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Hitting all the buttons.
Okay.
Okay. So
Thanks a lot,
Klaus and I
guys.
are back.
I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see the video afterwards because I know they were cutting to observer cam stuff.
Yeah, they have.
All right. We're going to end the call with those guys. And we're just going to play a quick video here. And like they said, Klaus is the one who got to really work a lot on the Nexus. And I was thinking Hassan. I don't know why, because I brought up this video. I'm actually going to play the Nexus video. That's what I was looking for. You can find it so I don't have to lean over you. But yeah, they were giving you mad props. How do you feel about that? How does that make you feel?
That's pretty good. I'm happy with the way Nexus came out. We've got a much more structured design for Nexus than we do with the continents. Because we really wanted to go with a very tight symmetrical design for Nexus, and I think we achieved that. If you haven't checked it out, we're going to show you the Nexus Battle Island video.
Yeah, so you guys will be able to hear that, and we'll play that for you guys really quick here. But it's kind of interesting to really hear the community's voice on that. I mean, obviously those guys were just saying exactly how they felt, unfiltered. I let them just say what they want. A lot of the things on that, they just don't know the answers to because we haven't released it. But that is something that I understand where they're going from that. They they think people are like, oh, you made a deal with MLG, why don't you have tournaments? Just because you make a deal with a partner like MLG doesn't mean that you have to have tournaments. There's a lot of other venues here that, you know, they just have people playing games, hanging out. So, you know, that's kind of, it's kind of a little bit weird for some people. But tournaments are definitely something that we want to do, and we did one at SOE Live, and that was cool.
Yep, the SOE Live one turned out pretty well. That was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I think, you know, we worked really hard for the production of that, and I think it went really well.
Yeah.
So we're going to play this video for you guys so you can see what the Nexus is about. If you haven't hopped in and checked it out on the public test server, you know, we do some play tests on it sometimes, and we pull people in. But like they said, like normally we don't just let anybody go on there because we weren't completely finished with it yet.
Yeah, it's still, it's for the most part finished, but it's still rough around the edges.
Yeah.
Yep, especially the map itself is in the most complete state. The stuff around it is the stuff that we need to do some work on.
So did you guys get to check out some of those community clashes live from the Nexus? Because I know Corey kept telling me whenever I had those to email him, so I'd email him and he'd hop in and watch.
Early on, I watched a few of the community clashes for Nexus.
And the War Report, I think the War Report has been in the Nexus a few times.
I haven't seen the War Report's Nexus fights, but I've seen some of the early fights on Nexus, and some of the stuff that the guys were saying were absolutely true. Air is very dominant on Nexus. We're gonna evaluate that, how we want that to play into the game. Obviously,
I think that's really a resource thing too, though.
That's absolutely
if you pull
a
a bunch
thing.
of you know, aircrafts, you're spending those resources. Actually, this is like a good question for you, and I mean, actually, no, we'll do the Nexus questions later because we do have a whole segment with Klaus that's coming up here shortly. And we're just going to play this video quick, and then we will go into that and kind of ask you all the questions about the Nexus.
Sounds good.
So we'll be right back in one moment here. So that's the Nexus video. Good stuff. That's your work. How does it feel looking at that?
To see my baby up there.
Yeah, to see your baby up there.
It's pretty cool.
That's a pretty cool video too. I don't know if I'm digging like the, you know, like the dun-dun-dun, like they're gonna come get you, like
that.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna something's gonna happen and attack me. Like at any moment there's gonna be like some, you know, like those videos you watch whenever you're watching it and it's like, oh, it's a video, and then all of a sudden there's like a scary chick like screaming in your face. That's what I imagine is gonna happen like randomly.
Nexus is pretty calm in that regard. I'd say you're safe.
All right, so I'm just going to reintroduce us. So if you guys are just tuning into this section, I'm Margaret Luperza. I'm the community manager for Planetside 2, and I'm with
Xander Klaus, game designer for Planetside 2.
And Xander has worked on the Nexus, and now our next segment here is going to be all about the Nexus. And we're just going to do some Q&A at some point, but right now we're just going to kind of talk about the Nexus in general. And I want to go back into like, what was the reasoning behind the design of the Nexus? Did you guys already go into that going, hey, I'm going to have a 48 versus 48 team. This is the kind of map I need to make and the size that I need to make in order to create good fights for that size, or what went behind that?
There's a bunch of reasons why the Nexus was created the way the Nexus was created. One was that it's a lot faster to iterate on the Nexus than it is to decide, okay, well, we're gonna crank out like Cirrus or Hasen or something like that. The Nexus is a much smaller map. I believe it's 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers.
And our normal maps are 8.
Yeah.
8 by 8.
So it's a lot smaller than like, you know, Amrish or Indar or something like that. So it's a lot faster to iterate on a map of that size as opposed to, well, let's create another 8 by 8 continent with, you know, 100 plus facilities on it. That's why we were able to put out Nexus. I think that was about a good month of my time, and then our environment artist, $1.99 taco combo went over that, and we've had a lot of work on it. So the original thing was, well, we want to get something that's very symmetrical, that's going to be able to help us push along.
Let's move on over this way so we can have more
Sure.
Planetside 2 stuff in the background.
Yeah, that sounds good.
As I was thinking, because I'm like, we have the Full Sail stuff. Not that we don't like Full Sail, but you know, we want that Planetside 2 background. There you go.
All right. So where was I? So part of the reason is that we're able to get continental conquest out a lot faster with the smaller continent size. We're able to iterate on these levels a lot faster. I was saying it was about 3 weeks of my time to do the level design for Nexus, and about 2-3 weeks for art to polish it up to where they wanted it to be. So that's one advantage that we have with the way Nexus was designed, especially with the size. Keeping that size, we want to. I don't know. Have we talked about the way we wanted to do Continental Conquest? I don't know if they're familiar with it. We spoke about it at SOE Live, but just to kind of refresh them, Continental Conquest is going to be a big part of the metagame that we're looking to create with Planetside 2. That's being able to, rather than like, okay, I'm going to fight on Indar today, or I'm going to go fight on Amrish today, you're going to fight wherever the front line is at, which means maybe you're pushed back to your particular home continent where you need to reclaim your land before you're able to go actually capture the enemies. And these are going to be connected via warp gates. So if you want to get to Hasen, you're going to have to go through your home continent of maybe Indar, depending on which faction you are, or you could go through. That's not a good example, actually. So okay, Hasen is going to be our central continent currently planned. If you've seen,
I think
the
we have
slides.
a photo of this too on the forum somewhere as well.
Yeah, I believe that's been posted around a bit.
Yeah, I think it's in the roadmap
Yeah.
section.
So if you're on Indar and you want to go fight the VS, who might have Amrish, you have a couple options of what you would get, how you would get to their particular continent. One of them is that you can go straight through Hasen, which is going to be our central continent currently planned for that. If you don't want to go through Hasen, or if Hasen has some you know, the other two factions are fighting there, and you want to do a sneak attack, maybe you can go through Nexus, which is going to connect Indar to Amrish as well. So that's kind of one of the big things that we're looking to gain with the way we're handling Battle Islands.
Yeah, so the Battle Islands will actually be part of the general combat area that the public plays on.
Yep.
It's just going to be a completely different setup than what we're going to be using for tournaments.
Yep.
So I think that we're planning on allowing about 500 people on the map for the world, the open world. But when it comes to tournaments, it's going to be 48 versus 48.
I think the last number we were talking about was like 200 or 250.
Okay,
It was
going
something
down to 250.
Yeah, it was something a little bit smaller than 500, but it's going to be definitely a smaller, more structured fight than the main continents are, which can be, you know, absolute bedlam depending on how many players are there and who's fighting it there, and are there 3 ways, that sort of thing going on at that fight. So what's the other thing? The other thing is that doing the Battle Islands the way they are, which is kind of, rather than it being like there's 3 warp gates there and all three factions could be there at the same time, having 2 warp gates on it makes it a structured fight that is going to be kind of more in line with what we want from our MLG when we have 1 team versus 1 team going head to head at the same time. And that's a major reason too why we did the Battle Islands the way we did.
So beyond that, okay, so you pretty much said that you're happy with it. Art has gone in and polished it. After seeing some players play, have you changed anything with the Nexus yet?
Not yet. I am going to have to get more involved with watching some of the community clashes when we do that on Nexus. Because I definitely had kind of garnered from the first initial viewings of some pretty good brawls going on there that Liberators especially were an extremely powerful force on Nexus, and kind of clearing out Liberators, even with the resource the kind of the resource drought that you have on Nexus at that time being. Super difficult to kind of take those Liberators out unless you have like Reavers or your Mosquitoes or Scythes hunting them down. And even then, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to take them out. So that's kind of one of the things that I want to reevaluate of how we can fix that. And I've got a kind of couple ideas of how I would want to take the air game down a notch if I just if the level design team decides that that's kind of a thing we want to do. For instance, we can make the mountains a little bit smaller so that they are it's harder to weave in and out of the geo essentially for aircraft. We could always throw more AA turrets on there, and that might be not something that's going to take them out, but more of a deterrent for that. Those are some of the ideas that I think that, one of the things that I think might be a problem with the way Nexus is going to play that I could change on that. At the same time, though, Nexus might be the map that air dominance is a big deal on, and that could be something that we decide, well, maybe that's not even a problem. Maybe we want it
maybe
that
the
way.
next map that you make for Battle Islands
Right.
will be a different type of map.
Yep.
Kind of like our maps that we already have released. When you go to Esamir, you're going to have much more, open spaces that you can take. I
Yep.
mean, you can take your tanks and roll out in a large armor column, and it
Absolutely.
is something that's more probable than maybe Amerish. Amber has so many like hills and mountains, and it's really more like a better place for air because you can travel much quicker.
Yep. Yeah, anybody who's played on Esamir, has got a good grasp on being in infantry is not always the easiest thing on that on that continent. So
Yeah.
That could be something that we decide. Okay, well that's what we want to do for this particular
The Nexus is
map.
kind of like
Yep.
Esamir in that sense because it's also a cold climate.
It shares.
Maybe all our cold climates will be long range, get in a vehicle because you're cold.
Yep. The actual fights themselves, though, are pretty kind of roped off for vehicles. Some of them have some interaction with infantry vehicles and infantry, but a lot of it's kind of separated. Once you get up to the actual or the actual outpost itself, you got to get out of your vehicle and cap the point on foot. It's not like Indar where a lot of it depending is a lot easier to kind of have vehicles interact with infantry.
All right. And I want you guys to feel free to ask questions in the chat. I know some people are asking if we're going to release the Nexus anytime soon, and that's something down the road.
Yep.
It's still we need to finalize some things, which actually brings me back to what are we finalizing? Obviously, people have seen the resource drains that happen in there. Are we going to wait for the new resource revamp before we implement Nexus?
Well, Nexus, one of the problems with Nexus in the sense that why we can't get into the main game right now is that the other two battle islands or the other two battle islands and Hassan are pretty much required for that. If you want to get Continental Conquest in, to get basically the block for it is that if there's only 2 warp gates on the battle islands, implementing them in the main game is going to be a stopgap solution until we get the Continental Conquest in. So we would have to come up with some system that determines, well, who's able to fight on the battle island? Do they have to own this continent and this continent to be able to go there? And any resources that we spend on getting battle islands to be kind of played before all of them are ready and Hassan's ready is just going to be resources that kind of push things out in the future. And that's kind of the reason why you won't be able to play battle islands in game unless you're kind of with a special arrangement on like Community Clash or something like that, is because we need to kind of get a lot more stuff finalized before we're able to release those to the public. Even if the map's finished, kind of the surrounding stuff around them isn't.
And I don't know if you can divulge anything like on this end because it is kind of more gameplay systems, but what are you guys expecting the actual gameplay on that continent to be like? Right now we have an alert that happens. If you've ever watched the War Report, they've used it, and it's kind of like you have an hour, go take this and go, and kind of have like a victory if you take over, the Nexuses.
I think that's kind of more in line what we want out of our the competitive experiences to, whoever that's definitely kind of a more stopgap solution because we have a different point system for the actual competitive thing.
Okay.
But for Nexus, it's whoever owns the most territory at the end of that 45 minutes, that hour, is the one that ends up being the victor for it.
Do you think that that's going to be the end tournament system, or are we going to be doing something beyond
We have a
that?
different point system, and I don't believe it's been totally finalized yet. That's something that kind of Kevmo, Malorn and I think Higby have kind of been working on the side. Since we're a bit off on the competitive, a little bit off on the competitive stuff until we get there, it's not something that we have finalized just yet. So we've got some time before we're going to see the total final picture of the competitive scoring and stuff like that ready.
Okay. I was just seeing if you wanted to like talk a little bit about it, but it's I know that like there's so much that we need to do, I think, before we release that, and I know a lot of people have been asking when we're going to release it, but we have,
we still it's still got some time in the oven before we're kind of ready to like commit to anything. I can give some really poor or outdated ideas because I haven't looked at it. We've been really working hard on the Amherst revamp for the time being, and I can give you some outdated details on it. But it's all stuff that's going to be like, well, I can't even say of whether or not we're still going along with that particular path.
Yeah, but I mean, at least giving some guys like these guys some ideas on what you guys are thinking about kind of will help, and maybe we can have a conversation with these guys in here as well.
The tentative plan, at least a few months ago, was to really push heavily on the 3 center large bases.
Granite.
Well, the Granite Head Reactor, Arazek Satcom, and I forget what the top one is. It was something Garrison.
Yeah, Garrison. Yeah, you're right.
Those 3 are going to be the ones that generate points for you, and you're going to be wanting to fight over those the most. The other win condition is taking the enemy's home base, which is a pretty heavily fortified base at right outside the warp gate, and the getting to the home base and successfully capturing that is supposed to be a loss condition for whoever ended up losing their home base. If you lose your home base, you messed up because you were supposed to defend that. But the three home bases or the 3 large outposts in the center are going to be the point generators as of the last plan that I had kind of looked at.
Yeah, and if you haven't played on the Nexus, basically you have these different like aisles that you're going through. Like you have different paths that you can take. The far left or the one that's up at the top is going to be. You actually do have a lot of cover from the mountainsides and whatnot.
Yeah,
as well.
that's one of the reasons why I believe the air game is so strong on Nexus right now. Is the height of the mountains for that, and part of that was originally like, well, we want to make sure they're occluded so you get good.